So I guess I'm just doing this. Yeah, I got it. Just started off with the hat because I didn't have a good hair day the first day I did this, and now I'm here doing this. So this is the Owl House. This is episode 7, Lost in Language. This is one of my personal favorite episodes. First, I said this is my second viewing of the season, but really, like, episodes like this episode especially, I've seen multiple times because I just love the idea of, um, well, yeah. So basically, it's basically Goosebumps. Like the movies or the books, because part of the episode is them in the library and during this I don't want to say comet, but this wailing star, I love how it's actually a wailing star too. Like it flies by and you just hear crying.
Whoa.
Oh, it's so stupid but funny. And the books come to life, but that's in the second half of the episode. The first half of the episode is Luce. Luce goes to the library to. It starts off with Luce going to the library to return books that Ida had, and even the librarian's like, "These are Ida's, aren't they?" Like because Luce is walking in with them, and then he like levitates them towards him, and he has this little like ring to like scan them, and it's like late, 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 and I think he even said like this one has ashes and blood on it, or something like that. And so Luce then hangs out because it's a library, and for the most part, it's a pretty normal library with a few different twists. Like obviously, all the books are related to the demon realm, and there's even like this cool little con. It's not a conveyor. It's like one of those. It's one of those. It's one of those like carousel. Yeah, a carousel. It's basically like a carousel, but nothing's attached to it. It's just the books. It's like a floating carousel of books going through the library, and Luce grabs on and hangs on for dear life as she flies through it. But that's mainly just the bit. And so she goes in, and oh yeah, this is also favorite line in the episode is she sees a poster for Wailing Comet. Or Wailing Comet. I keep saying Comet. Ugh, Avatar, get out of my head. The Wailing Star, and she asks the librarian what that is, and the librarian's response is just,
"You're in a library. Read a book."
it's simple, but it's just good. It's good writing, honestly. So, yeah, well, that's going on. Ida and King are meanwhile at the house taking care of a baby bat that for the Bat Queen, and so um no real explanation as to how the Bat Queen knows Ida. Like Ida knows who the Bat Queen is, but she never really says how the Bat Queen knows her. All that she knows is that the Bat Queen dropped off her baby and is gonna give her a handsome reward because Ida says the Bat Queen is the wealthiest demon on the Isle. So there's that. And so she and King have to take care of it, and it's a baby bat, so you can probably imagine how hectic it gets. And yeah, so um, so yeah, while Luz is at the library, she sees Amity there, and Amity's reading books to kids, and Luz takes that as like a moment of like, oh wow, she actually isn't a terrible person, and I'm like, well, you kind of guys made somewhat of amends in episode 5, but I mean, so she kind of takes that as an opportunity to try and befriend her, just like in beginning of the episode, she's reading her Azora book, and there is a moment like that where she's like Azora befriended one of her rivals, so she's like, oh, maybe I can do the same, and so Amity is reading a book to kids. It's called Otaban the Bookmaker. It's pretty. It's like a combination of. It kind of looks like Piglet, but it's a rabbit, and he like creates books. Like he can sew up books, and it's a kind of cool concept. And there's some rhymes and fun, cute little things, and the kids, the kids like it, and Amity seems to enjoy it too. But then she sees Luz, and she's immediately like, oh, it's you. So, basically Luz is like, oh wow, so you do have a soft side, and Amity's like, oh, it's just extra credit, but part of me is like, yeah, probably not. So Luz tries to befriend her, but Amity once again snaps at her because she's like, well, first you got me in trouble at school, then you embarrassed me at the convention, and she's like, I don't, and she's basically like, can you just leave me alone, give me some space, or just get out of here. And so what's interesting is she snaps at Luz, and Luz turns and leaves. But while Luz is leaving, Amity slowly begins to raise her hand out to like say, "Hey, wait!" But like she stops midway, and I like little details like that for this character because it shows that she isn't a full no real bully is a full bully, and it's 2020 and it's 2021, or well, I mean it was 2020 when this episode came out, so it's like, but still, it's like, bullies have come a long way when it comes in terms of character development and stuff. So while Luce is walking away, she then runs into Emira and Edric, who are Amity's older siblings. So there's that. It's like, oh, you don't think Amity is a stereotypical bully? You should see these two. They're, for the most part, they're pretty much the older sibling stereotype in this episode. They're not fully. Actually, yeah, they're kind of jerks in this. Well, I mean, they're not jerks to Luz. They definitely have fun with Luz, and like Luz definitely has fun with them, and like they do some pranks in the library, but then eventually get kicked out, and then then Emira and Edric. I mean, I think they're twins. Yeah, I think that's what they said. I think they're twins. They definitely. I mean, they look pretty similar, even though it's a guy and a girl. They're like they're fraternal, but they have pretty similar. Like they both wear the same uniforms. They both pretty much have the same hair, same face, same ears, same eyes. So cool. Then yeah. So after they leave, Emma and Edric say like, "Hey, we're gonna come back later tonight. We forgot a book." So and they ask her if they want to join, if she wants to join them. Luz agrees, and so then but then she's like, "Well, if I can befriend Emma and Edric, maybe I can befriend Amity after that." And so they then, but also funny thing is like, Emma and Edric are like, oh, don't let middens. That's what they call them, middens. They're like, don't let her get to you. It's like, and then they're like, oh, she's such a tattletale. She gets so riled up for the smallest things. And then Edric like makes like an angry face to show how like angry Amy gets. But then he's like, oh, like his face gets red and he almost passes out. And he's like, whew, nearly passed out there. And then I bring that up because Luz like Emma and Edric leave, and then Luz basically spells out what I talked about. Like, if I could befriend them, I can befriend Emily. Amity. This is going so well. And then Amity's off to the side, eavesdropping in. And so while Luz walks away, she then begins to make the angry face, and then she herself almost passes out. And it's just little funny moments where it's like, oh, she wouldn't do that, and it's like, oh, actually, yeah, she does do that. So Luz drops in on Ida and King, who are taking care of the baby bat, and then what's funny, let's see, I didn't notice that one of this I don't know why I didn't notice this every time I watched this episode, but Ida, like, the baby's been crying, and so King's been using pillows, like he tied pillows to his ears to keep it up. But what Ida did is she took her hands and like plugged them in, but they're severed. So like she had severed hands as earplugs, and so. What's funny is like she gets tired of letting it cry, so then she nestles it in her arms and she's like, rock, motherly things, or acting maternal, I think. Yeah, so Luz drops in and she's like, oh, it's so cute, but then the baby the baby throws up another baby, and then that baby throws up another baby, and all of a sudden it just goes from 1 to 3. And so Luce is like, all right, I'm out. And so the babies of course continue riling up, and they even make a joke, like it even makes a joke like, how do we stop this? And King's like, I know, maybe if we made a TV network ages 6 to 11. Oh, I gotta love those meta jokes. They're so funny. Especially when it's Alex Hirsch making them. It's just hearing it come out of King's voice. Like, I forgot to mention this in the previous episodes, but King's voice is basically Bill Cipher's if you took away the sound, the extra like voice and effects, like, you know, like like it's pretty much that. Like you can easily add the sound effect that Bill Cipher has, and you can definitely believe that this is what King does. so so yeah, so Emira, Edric, and Luce, they all go back to the library at midnight when the Wailing Star comes by, and like I said before, it actually is wailing when it flies by, and then the library, all the library books then, like, they start glowing green, and then Luce notices it, and she opens it up, and pretty much it's like, yeah, like I said, it's pretty much like Goosebumps, where whatever's in the story comes out and comes to life. But then what's cool is you close, unlike Goosebumps where they had to get it back in, they just close it and it disappears. So there's that. So of course they start messing around, like they have some fun with snowballs. There's even this cool one with the comic book where they open it up and they're like, nothing happened, and then all of a sudden just a pop bubble, nothing happened, and they're like, whoa, and then the pop bubbles pop, and then and then there's a sound, then they make like there's a sound effect like pop, and it's just little things like that are so cool. So so after they mess around a bit, Emira and Edric then like show Luce this little romantic bookshelf, and of course Luce is like, oh yeah, cool. But then they pull on one of the books, and it reveals a secret room. And so at first Luce thinks it's their secret room, but then they're like, what do you think? We actually like reading books? And so it's Amity's secret room. And I remember the first time I saw this, and pretty much every time I watch this episode, why does Amity have a secret room in the library? It's like, wow. I mean, I would get it if it was like if she worked at the library and she had like her own office, but this, like, it's literally a secret room behind a bookshelf. So I don't know. So then Emma and Edric then tell Luce that the book that they were going for is Amity's diary, because they say, like, you know, Amity's been riled up. She's a tattletale. You know, she told, you know, she's basically been, you know, a little sister, you know, like the little sibling, you know, like wondering like how do the older siblings keep getting away with stuff. So then of course this is obvious. When they said that, I pretty much had the same reaction as Luce, and that's saying like, isn't that a bit too far? Like Luce is like, yeah, I don't think that's a good idea. And so she at first is standing near the entrance, like saying, oh, I don't see anything, but until she spots a collection of Azora books that Amity has, like, so it's books 1 through 4, and Luce had the 5th book at the beginning of the episode, and so she is amazed that Amity has that. But of course, like, she then like looks through the books and notices one of them doesn't look like the other, and of course, wouldn't you know it, that's Amity's diary. And what I like about it too is she opens up the diary, and since it's not a story, it's just a diary, it's Amity who pops up, and it's like she then like talks about what's said in the diary. She's like, let's see, what was the first one? So the first one was like, I saw that human again today. I brushed her off. I don't know what to think. I don't know what to think about her, but I can't show any weakness. That's like, and so, you know, that's kind of understandable as why she doesn't want to show weakness. You know, you gotta kind of, but then obviously, obviously the siblings notice, and like Luce tries to hide it at first, and of course they notice it, and they're like, wait, why are you trying to hide this? Like, you've seen how Amity treats other people, how she treats you, and Luce is obviously like, well, yeah, but the mess, not no one deserves stuff like this. So then she tries to take the book back, but they can't, but they won't give it up. Like they're saying like she needs this, she needs like, well, I'm like, actually, yeah, they were gonna get her diary and then expose her secrets on Instagram. I'm like, that's like the biggest leak of leaks. So they they wrestle over the diary. The diary then rips open, and a few pages open up. There's a few one of my, well, I mean, there's a few that pretty much are simple, but then one of them is this. Dear diary, sorry I haven't written in a while. Wait a minute, why am I apologizing? it's so funny. But then Amity, because she was eavesdropping on them earlier, it walks in and sees them, and of course she gets mad at Emma and Edric, but then she looks at Luce and she says, I was trying to figure you out. Were you unheard or a poser? God. But then she says, you're just a bully. And I've seen this episode enough to I would imagine I would try to figure out what she meant by that. Oh yeah. Again, I kind of understand where she's coming from, because like every time she's around Luce, she gets either in trouble or embarrassed. So that's usually what happens when you get around a bully. You either get in trouble or embarrassed. And so, but Luce, I don't know, I feel like there was not enough there to consider her as an actual bully. I guess it's just really no other word, I guess, Amity could have described her as. So Amity runs off, she's upset. And so Emma and Edric then are like, okay, well, the fun's over, so let's get going. But Luce is like, wait, you're just gonna leave her here? Like, after what just happened? And so Emma and Edric basically are like, yeah. So Luce is like, well, okay, you guys go, I'll stay then. And so they I like how they don't argue. They're just like, okay. They just leave, and Luce goes after Amity. Oh, completely forgot. One of the books that they mess with was the Audubon, the bookmaker, the rabbit book. And so they find out when they actually open up the book, not only does a thing come out of the book, but they can actually write something in, and that also comes to life. Or they can draw something, and that comes to life. So one of the books that they mess with is the Audubon book. But I don't know, I feel kind of conflicted with it, because all they do is they put mean eyebrows on the rabbit's head. Maybe they added a little shade to the eyes. But other than that, they didn't really do much to it. And Luce at first has the book closed because she doesn't want to see what it is, but then they grab it and toss it aside. They're like, all right, well, let's keep looking. And so when they toss the book, obviously the book doesn't land closed, it lands open, and so you can imagine that. So back to what I was saying about Luce and Amity. Luce, finds Amity, and so Amity is like, she's basically confused with Luce. She's like, I don't get it, you embarrassed me, but now you try to be my friend? Like, pick a side. But then, they keep talking, Luce tries to explain things, but then they hear the rumbling, and that's when the Audubon the rabbit shows up. And I just they really never he's basically this giant scary monster, but I just kept calling him, I basically called him this. I call him Audubon the rabbit jackrabbit. That's just me. That's me. No one else. I mean, if someone else came up with that, I have no idea. I had no idea. That's literally just me calling him that. So, Luce, it takes Amity, and so Luce has to go rescue her. And so what she does, very clever, she takes a book, and she writes down that she is a Zora, or she calls her Luzora. She calls herself Luzora. And so she grabs the she comes in, really cool. It seems like, yeah, she's gonna kick butt. Nope, she doesn't. Fails miserably. In fact, she creates a staff, and like she goes to hit the rabbit, who is the rabbit who has Amity pinned up against the book and is sewing her into the book, like one of her arms is like this, or was it like this? I don't want to. So like he sews it up, and then when he pulls on the string, the whole arm then becomes 2D with the book, and that's just a terrifying way to go, like in my opinion. So Luz comes in, tries to help. She takes a swing at the rabbit. Rabbit literally just catches the staff, tosses it aside, reaches down, grabs the book, and just closes it. And then of course Luz poofs back into normal, and the rabbit then puts Luz up against the book. And so Amity's like, "Way to go, Lizora." And so, yeah, that was pretty bad. But then the rabbit gets Luz's arm, and now they're both stuck on the book. And they each only have one arm stuck. And so Luz notices that, and so she basically forces the book to fall forward, so that way Luz and Amity's feet hit the ground, and then they start running with it. And so they get away from the Audubon, and so Amity's like, "Now what?" And Luz is like, "I don't know. I didn't even think that would work." And then she makes this scream like, I really can't replicate it. It's a weird like scream. She's like, I was just like, ah! Ah! And what's funny? It's funny. It's like, what's weird is Amity actually gets to laugh at it. Like Luz makes the scream, and then Amity actually laughs. Like and it's not like oh wow, that's so stupid, or it's literally just a generic laugh. Like, wow, that was funny. Like, that's actually funny. And so Luz gets a smile out of that, but then the rabbit comes back and hooks and like tries to get the book, and then Amity is able to break free after reaching and grabbing something and pulling herself out. But Luz is still trapped, so Amity goes and helps Luz break free. Like, I also like the fact that like Amity grabs a pen and grabs a pencil and writes in a book. Luz has to right a wrong, and a giant eraser comes down, and Amity tosses it towards Luz. Where, oh yeah, completely forgot too. The rabbit's heart is like his book. Like, it's literally like here on his chest, and it's beating. Creepy. So Luz takes the eraser, erases the mean face on the rabbit, and rabbit goes back to normal. And then it apologizes to Amity, saying like, "I'm sorry, I didn't know what came over me." And Amity's like, "It's okay, we're still friends." And then Luz closes the book, and so that pretty much ends the whole horror of the night. And Amity and Luz are walking out, and Amity at first is like, it's like, well, I mean, Luz is like, "Well, that was a pretty eventful night," and Amity's like, "This never happened." Like, she's like, "We'll never speak of this again." And then Luz then makes up for, well, I wouldn't say she makes up for it. She just says, she gives Amity her book, her Zora book, and says, "I noticed you wouldn't have number 5, so you can have this." And so Amity's like, "I haven't been able to figure it out, but I have myself to partially blame for that. I haven't been the best person either." So then Amity leaves, and so Luz heads back to the owl house, where Ida and King are now passed out with the 3 children, because Ida basically gave into the motherly thing, and so like she made apple slices for them and like read a book. Actually, it was the Audubon book as well. So she comes back, and then the Bat Queen shows up. Pretty cool design. It's a giant. It's not a normal bat. It's pretty much a head. It's pretty much a head with little legs and wings. That's pretty much what it is. So the bat, and obviously long black hair, and yeah. So the Bat Queen comes in, takes her kids, gives the reward. It's pretty good. It's a pretty good reward. It's a treasure chest full of gold. Then she leaves, and then she also says, "I owe her one. Like, I owe Ida one." And so I'm like, again, we never fully get how the Bat Queen knows. I mean, I guess because Edith's the owl lady, she's one of the most known things on the Isles. I guess she was like, yeah, she could babysit my kids for a day. So Ida and King wake up, the kids are gone, and they're sad. Obviously, you know, they grew a connection, and the funny thing is, Luce gives Ida a book called "Coping with Emptiness Syndrome," which is pretty funny. And then they pretty much make up, and that's pretty. The episode ends there. So yeah, I really like this episode because one, I really like the Goosebumps feel to it, with all the books coming to life, and just that idea of like basically, yeah, just like that dream of like every just like a character from a book literally leaping out of the page. And just the dynamic between Luce and Amity for the most part is it's pretty much the same throughout the other episodes prior to this, but there is those moments, you know, like I said, Amity laughs when Luce was Luce basically saying I didn't think that would work, and just those touching moments. Yeah, and even Emma and Edric, like this episode, yeah, they were a little more sinister, but they come back. They come back, and I definitely say they're a little toned down with their with their hostile, personalities. So, yeah, all right, yeah, that was episode 7. So, hope to see you in the next one.